Hello, this is Dia Prier coming to you live from Northampton. It is a sunny day, and so of course I'm doing what would do on a sunny day, is getting my bronze on. I'm just back from Vietnam, where my partner and I work in university, so we work in education. And so this video is about investing in education and the 7-to-1 return on investing in education versus the consequences of failure, like prison at another extreme. And so I want to give those, give some examples from my own personal life, and then talk a little bit more about the statistics around people like me from where I'm from, poor and working class black people, and why investment in preschool education and kindergarten must be so important, must be a much greater emphasis of our agenda rather than guns, rather than investing in prisons and trying to fight crime. Investing in education is the way to fight crime. I went to a Catholic kindergarten in Louisville, Kentucky. It was very mixed race, mixed class. By definition, Catholic institutions in my city, at least as I can see, really promote what one would have to call a very socialist agenda. I know that word is very loaded and very heated, but look at what they do. They provide health care, schools, and they feed the homeless. And increasingly, as the government divested from those three things, from investing in the poor, then those institutions took greater care of youth, including youth like me. So I had a great education there, and it wasn't just babysitting. In kindergarten, it wasn't just wow wee with other kids and playing, and building blocks and stuff. It was actually like, learn how to have a disciplined approach to learning. Luckily, I say it was in a Catholic school because obviously at 4 and 5 years old, and I was 4 when I started, we're too young to actually, many boys in particular, are too immature to actually, sit and focus on any one thing for any long, particular amount of time, whereas girls might be slightly more mature at the same age. And so, luckily, I was in a Catholic school, which gave me slightly more freedom. I was asked not to come back, apparently because I later found out in life that it came out that I was queer, for whatever that meant, as a kindergartner. And I had a queer friend in kindergarten, that we were corrupting one another, so I think he was asked not to come back either. And I went to first grade more prepared, in a normal public school. And I'll get to how my educational role rolled on now to having a PhD from a university in India, a master's from um, a elite Southern university, and a bachelor's from a small liberal arts college in Ohio. All rolled from my mother hastening her cause to to get us out of poverty. And so she knew that, in sort of normal neighborhood, in our local neighborhood, public school wasn't going to offer me that. They were training people to go to prison or go labor in some company, and that was not at all what, I think, in some ways, fear-driven. Of that, what happens to other black boys, including like my cousin who's sitting in prison now, who's been shot and just brutalized his whole life, and including in and out of education and the system and the state, being at one point, evaluated psychologically and all that stuff, but ultimately criminalized. And he didn't have the consistent sort of education um, that I had, even a, a pre-kindergarten education. So him lacking that, well, he's in prison now, to this day, and he's only like 3 years younger than me, from the same neighborhood, from the same grandparents. And our grandparents supplemented our after school education because my kindergarten luckily was a local one, and this is ultimately my point. It was a local one, and I could walk from my house to the kindergarten to my grandparents after kindergarten, and they could babysit me until my mother got off work. And so that's what I'm saying. It allowed my mother to work. An investment in my pre school education allowed for a taxpayer to go about her business. And so we didn't have to take public assistance, for example. So that would be a consequence of failure, a consequence of not investing in education, or even just militarization, let alone this most recent thing that our Congress has done to, make sure that flights and airports can be on time. But, some kindergarten programs have been absolutely cut. And so that means that many young parents, young mothers, single parents in particular, won't be able to work or won't be able to go to school, and it just perpetuates that cycle of poverty. That's chronic poverty, and that's the intergenerational curse of blackness that families like me, like mine, where I come from, from the cotton fields in the South, have struggled to break. My family was able to break that. Ultimately, my mother was able, seeing that she wasn't um, gonna survive. We weren't gonna survive. We weren't gonna break the chain. If I went to a regular public school, I went to the Brown School in downtown Louisville, first in Muhammad Ali. And for the next 11 years, well, I became Mr. Brown School at some point. And that is to say that the spirit of cooperation, it was a school that drew students from every quadrant of the city um, by design. And had a gender and racial mix. And when I say mix, it means we were like 50-50, 55-50% people of color and white students. And so having this class mix, really that exposure, that's what it came down to. So after that, my education was liberal arts education about exposure and social exposure and how to overcome, rid, deconstruct, understand racism and build an ethic of love. And that is again something that is based in early education. I mean, the investing in preschool education is the most democratic act that we could say to even ourselves as the citizenry. So that's been my experience, and I said that education, that investing in that is so um, fundamental for nation building. Again, I say at the opposite extreme, you have the lack of investment in that area, and you have investment in prisons. So by fourth grade, you're testing, urban schools for um, the number of potential degenerates, by which you can say, okay, if we test in 2004, by 2012, when they're old enough, we'll have this many slots in military and this many slots in prison. Lo and behold, we're at war, and we're in the prison industrial complex. It's got us on a stronghold. So this is like Angela Davis, really have become moderate advocates for this and see it as a form of modern day slavery. And certainly when I go through the Wendy's drive-through, down there in the cotton fields of Alabama, and the sister serving me is getting $2 an hour that she has to pay back for her care and keep at while down the road, where she's likely to get raped. Um, it's a kind of slavery. It's Django. Where's Django? You know. So the prison industrial complex on one side versus the educational industrial complex on the other. And we don't even have that term educational industrial complex until we have that paradigm shift to challenge, what is effectively kind of corporatization of our societies. You have corporate prisons, you have corporatized military, including Halliburton, who now has a new suitcase out based on their Gulf War experiences. Um, you invest in those, and those become the ways that we see society as opposed to nation building. It's nation time. It's winning in America.